over 10 years, I know that, continues to be in place, but we don't lump it in with all the other positions because of that independent source. So there's no changes. I think the observation you made on the other positions regarding 3% would apply here, but it is this grant comes in and each county gets a third of it, and then that third is used to reimburse the county for that position.
Madam Chair, I guess Attorney Robinson, I'm seeing 2021 budget 86,736. I'm seeing the 2022 request at 97,000. Even at a 3% raise, I don't see how that's exactly coming out.
In health insurance, I think somebody explained this to me, but it's going to be the health insurance is the change.
Probably went from a single to a family.
All right, thank you.
There's something that triggered it, that's right.
Thanks.
But anyways, that's the answer for that.
If there's any other questions? Well, that was painless.
That's it? Man. Next year I'm gonna come back with some kind of fireworks or something. You wanna build a new court?
You can stay and talk for a while longer if you want.
Well, thank you. But I guess if I rush home, I could probably get home for story time, so we'll take a shot at it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Move on to Registry of Deeds. And Tina? And that is 1065, couple tabs over in your book.
I put back in for meals and lodging, hoping that there'll be a convention next year. That's basically what would cover the convention fees. And then there's a couple lines where I took a little bit out, $50 here, $100 there. But overall, everything else is the same.
Any question for our Register of Deeds? Okay, we will move on to the Registry of Probate. Can you believe it?
Thank you.
Good evening. It was expeditious. So essentially, in the breakdown, which I believe was provided for everybody, what I did, it sounds like Tina did with the deeds budget, was to bring back some of the items that we reduced last year: meals, lodging, and other travel expenses. One of the biggest items you'll notice is in salaries and wages, increasing above and beyond the 3%, but to include increasing the registers hours, not wages, but hours, an extra 5 hours a week. And other than that, I believe everything is pretty much the same. And I just want to, before Larry weighs in, please, there are a few, I want to say, minor changes, including for statutes and reference, like the district attorney's office. These are needed and based on the schedule of when they are published. It made sense to increase that line by $500. And the printing and engraving, which takes from, I think it was a reproduction line, which is, I averaged out $1,000 for our, that's the printing supplies, toners and whatnot. And I think, Larry, what were you gonna?
What I was going to mention is that we have that major thing going on in probate office, the renovation this coming year. And then as Tom and I talked about increasing the registrar's hours, that was a part of the equation to give him more time here to oversee that. And I will also notice that, or have you notice that the registrar of probate in Androscoggin County is the only registrar of probate that is part-time in the state. The rest of them are all full-time. But it made sense in this particular case to add that 5 hours so that he can oversee.
And a side note to that, it is true that the Androscoggin County Register of Probate position is the only part-time position. And I believe, are third in actual volume for, in comparison to the rest of the counties. And we have like the smallest staff in comparison. I mean, there's other counties that have, you know, lower volume, but they have smaller staff, and it coincides with that. We actually, as a side note, hours for court hearings have been increased to accommodate the growing numbers. And we find that overall, after the pandemic year of 2020, people are coming forth, they're looking to get passports and get back to normal, and that's a big part of it, and it's a big part of what we do, as well as serving the public in their times of need with you know, other family issues like guardianships and adoptions and stuff like that.
Just so you, I believe though, as has been driven home this week, where you're an elected official, our word will not be the last word on this increase.
I certainly hear that, and I appreciate that. I'm glad we have the clarification as well, but I assumed as much coming into this meeting tonight.
Okay, just so you I just want you to be sure that, I don't want you to walk out of here.
Thinking it's a done deal, yeah.
What's the hour increase? Is it an hour? a
5
day?
hours a week.
I mean, are you doing an hour a day, or is you adding to one additional day? How are you breaking it up?
So an hour a day,
Hour a day.
I would say. But, and so with, you know, the scope of the project that we, you know, which has been approved by you folks last week, is, you know, there's a lot to it. And, you know, I know that it's apt to be more than, you know, 5 hours a week that is going to require, you know, heavy lifting at times to make sure that it happens in a timely manner. But so I just think that for the regular operating of the probate office and support of the staff, to gradually increase the register's presence is part of that overall picture.
I guess this would be more to you, Clarice. Notwithstanding approval of the Budget Committee, if he's working on the renovation, would that, and he's working directly with those changes that we're making with the rescue funds, would those hours be chargeable to the rescue fund money?
It may be able to go as part of the project. It really depends on what his function is, what he's doing.
Yeah, as that comes, if, you know, if it meets
Definitely
approval
look at
of, later, you know, let's look at that.
Yeah, we can look at that.
Madam Chair. A question for the register. How many hours currently is the register paid for? And would this change health benefits, et cetera, or other benefits?
There are benefits, yes. Yes, there are currently benefits, and the register, it's a part-time position, it's an average of 20 hours a week.
Only thing I would mention, Madam Chair, is that we all are elected officials here, and you know, we start with that, whatever that amount is that we are compensated by the taxpayer. So that's part of the position. So I don't think that this is really justified to manage the change. And if we were to go forward with this, I would ask the commission to consider setting this up as a 5-hour increase for this year. But sadly, I know how things go, that will become permanent.
Okay. Okay, any other questions for the register of probate?
Madam Chair, just the same question on I would ask all staff, department heads, and staff, just that looking to reduce the meals, lodging, et cetera, and conferences being remote. I think that option is going to stay around for a long time. And with the Delta panic being whipped up by the media, I think we will see very little travel permitted. So, thank you.
And if I could just add a couple of comments regarding the travel, we certainly, we're taking it a week, a month, and whatnot at a time. In-person registers meetings have resumed. And so we certainly want to be able to compensate the staff to for their mileage and whatnot to be there. And if there is a convention, you know, this year, we certainly want to be able to be there as well as next year as well. And regarding the register's increase in hours, I think it was mid-80s, Androscoggin had a full-time register, and at that time, the register approached the board at that time and wanted to take an adjunct teaching position at the Central Maine Community College, and asked if they would make the register position part-time. And that's how we ended up this way with that position. And for myself, I feel that my desire is to see it increased over time, that it's not just a year. I think I'm happy to readdress it next year if that's the will of the board. But I certainly feel that in the betterment of supporting the staff and the people that we serve, that increasing the hours would go a long ways to doing that. Thank you.
I'd never heard that little piece of history.
Yeah.
In all these years, never heard that. Did not know that. Thank you. All right, any other questions before we move on?
Thank you, Larry.
Hey, Sally, did you want to take a, doesn't look like they're coming. Do you want to?
Thanks. We got 2 more to go. Yeah. Androscoggin Valley Soil and Conservation, hi.
Good evening. Thank you so much for having me back. So taking a look at 2020, there are big changes coming to the district that I'm very excited about. COVID has posed some rather interesting challenges for the district, considering our primary focus is education and outreach, which typically looks like in-person events. We've planned a couple that ended up getting canceled. So the past year and a half, we've stuck to primarily online educational training or outreach. Fortunately, the summer is the most exciting time. I've once a week at least, I've managed a technical assistance job, and it's primarily in Androscoggin County, in the area of Poland on our lakes. But I am bringing on a new employee to take over as district manager and stepping down into an administrative managerial role. I will be a part-time employee, and we've just hired somebody new to come in and come back to the office full-time, which is very exciting. And we will be continuing in-person events beginning in October. So this budget reflects that we will be more active. I've brought things back up and increased the cost for travel, for promotions, for workshop supplies, things like that. I've also increased the wages that you'd see under the district manager expenses. We'd like to hire someone with a little bit more experience to keep expanding the district and keep us growing. So we've increased the hourly rate. And my hours will go down. I will not be working as often as I have been. And we are also not asking for an increase in our budget. We're trying to, I want to keep things working the way they are. If anyone has any questions.
Questions? Okay.
All right,
Thank you very much. Yeah,
Good
we're-
to see everyone.
Oh, and our last category, Western Maine Transportation.
Good evening, Commissioners. How are you all? Hope well. Western Maine Transportation has survived the pandemic, I'm very pleased to say. We had a lot of help from the federal government through various programs. We have been able to bring back some ridership. It is growing again. Some quick numbers. The Green Line commuter service that goes from Lewiston, Auburn to Farmington and back, we have had since the 1st of October through today, 765 riders, which is steadily increasing. The enhanced ADA service, which is around the Lewiston, Auburn area, not where CityLink is. It doesn't include that service. We've had 804 riders. The Blue Line is being a rousing success at 2,464 riders. Livermore Falls demand response, 557 riders, and other demand response nominally between the Oxford Hills area and here in return 242. And all of this is beginning, if you'll pardon me, using the analogy, gaining traction. Last year, we had reduced our request to $40,000. We are back to requesting $45,000 this year. We will, of course, be glad to accept whatever the county can bear on this. We continue to get people to employment. We continue to take people to health care. We continue to get people to training. We're waiting to see what's going to happen with the Central Maine Community College. They're hoping to get at least a healthy percentage of their student body back in person, but my understanding is that they are still considering options there. But we do take quite a few people there when we're running. It's going to be another difficult year. People are still not used to the thought of going back out and helping themselves in public by use of public transit, but we're hoping that the trends that we're starting to see will continue.
Is your level of matching funds steady from years past?
In terms of what is being requested for match, some of that is still being determined. There are, as with all of the federal funding right now, There was a lot of match that was forgiven last year. We don't actually know what's going to happen with this yet. Hopefully, as these meetings progress, we'll have more information. But as of right now, we have to assume that we will have to present local match in order to draw down future federal funding. Good question, thank you. And that the match that we're getting is always better than one-to-one.
Questions?
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Mr. Zerhorst, I remember in previous meetings that you've presented, I believe you said, I think better than 2-to-1. So these matching funds are now declining?
No, what I said, Commissioner Larry, is at least 1-to-1. What happens in the federal grants administration, funding grants administration, is depending on what you are asking the feds for, that match changes, and it varies between 1-to-1, or what we refer to as a 50-50 match, or an 80-20 match. And there are also times when that match is even more favorable. So I can sit here and safely say at least 1-to-1. That will vary depending on what the budgets look like. It will depend on capital expenditures for buses, which the state is currently behind on providing, so that will not look as good on paper, but when they do become available, that will increase that. So I hope that helps that. Federal funding, as you know, is an arcane thing. So I hope that helps clear that up a little bit. I can promise at least 1-to-1, and it is usually far more than that.
Madam Chair, I think in the past year, we had asked for some more budgetary documentation. Maybe it's somewhere else, and I don't see this. I only received this document today, so I did not have time to review it ahead of time. But I guess I'm just wondering, I understand the logic behind spending this money, but I don't believe we ever gave $45,000 of taxpayer money to Western Maine Transportation Service. I think the highest was $42,500. So I'm a little concerned there that you're saying returning to former request amount. And I don't think this is a good use of taxpayer money. I think it's basically socialistic in its concept. And in a time where people are losing their jobs because of massive government spending and overreach, they're also facing the ability or the very, not just real risk, but actual effective if they are not willing or able to wear a mask, they are not able to get onto public transportation paid for by their own tax dollars. From my understanding, TSA does not allow anyone to get onto a bus or other transit system of the sort without a mask, not even a face shield, even if they have breathing problems. Is that correct?
That's correct. Anyone over 2 years of age is unable to ride public transit until I believe the date that has been set is September 21st, when it will be reviewed. It is for the safety of the public as well as the drivers. I understand your position on the issue. I respectfully disagree with you.
And I respect that. Are they able to wear face shields or reasonable accommodations provided? Some people cannot breathe with a mask on.
People who may or may not have medical situations, we do not have the ability to make accommodation for that. Current requirements are a appropriate cloth or medical style face mask worn on the nose and mouth.
Okay. Then, Madam Chair, I would request that we make this, move this down to $0.
One other comment, Commissioner Larry is correct. I believe the maximum amount we've ever been rewarded, or awarded, not rewarded, was $42,500. We had at one point had a request for $45,000. And again, we would be grateful for whatever the commissioners would be willing to fund.
Clarice, I know I keep going back to you, but, sorry. If, and I don't know if they will, I don't know what the collective will of the commissioners will be, but if they didn't want to go all the way up to the 45 and wanted to hold it steady, this was an area that was specifically carved out for rescue funds, wasn't it, transportation?
So originally, they were bouncing around transportation when they were first talking about the grant. However, in the interim final rule, I do not see transportation on this.
Yeah, because I think they carved out 4 areas in transportation.
Yes.
I was wondering if that was one way we could, hold steady budget-wise and still, I see. Oh, that's,
There was a lot of confusion surrounding that, and I'm not convinced that that has even been completely settled at this point. So what's the saying? Give us something or give us ambiguity or something like that?
And it is federal, so. Yeah,
It is federal, right. I'm hoping that we will know by the end of the summer, but yes, there are many questions surrounding that. One other thing is that the Androscoggin Transportation Resource Council study is still underway. They hope to complete that this fall. That is the AvCog-based study for the regionalization of transportation, and we understand there's some good ideas coming out of it. If those can be implemented, we're unsure at this point, but we're very hopeful that it will give us a good roadmap to move forward.
Madam Chair. I had a question for Mr. Zorhorst. What's the general percentage of senior citizens that are being served by this service? I realize you may not have 5,222, but
Commissioner Larry, I believe if we were to look at the numbers right now, it is weighted very heavily towards senior citizens. As ridership comes back, that will vary. When we were at our peak prior to the pandemic, we were, it depends how you want to categorize seniors, because that seems to be a shifting, thank you for that smile, a shifting definition. But typically we'll use 65 or 60 as that, in which case I now qualify. But the ridership would be fairly evenly split between those who are seniors and those who are not seniors. But right now, I would say the predominating demographic is senior.
And Madam Chair, with the, I guess with that, much of the justification for this service is to help out senior citizens and disabled people with medical issues. That those groups tend to actually have many breathing issues or heart issues where wearing a mask may actually compound those health issues. So I just respectfully register my deep concern about using taxpayer dollars for something that they're actually not even able to use due to inappropriate federal guidelines or mandates or laws. Thank you.
If I may respond to that, Madam Chairman? The ridership that we have been accommodating during the pandemic has had no issue whatsoever with wearing masks appropriately. And we're very glad that that's the case, but it is a very uncommon thing for people to have a difficulty wearing masks in our experience.
okay. Thank you so much. For
Thank
your
you
time
all
for
so
coming.
much.
And it is 6:04, and we are adjourned. No, I don't believe so, not in budget.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Does anybody remember from you? I don't think in budget hearings, we need a motion to,
Is this, Madam Chair,
adjourn.
is this a meeting of the Androscoggin County Commission?
Okay. Well, is there a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion to
Okay,
adjourn.
Mr. Larry, a second, please.
Second.
All in favor? Opposed?